Welcome to a special edition of LC Screen Talk. Today I'm taking part in a collaboration with Rachel Wagner, a fellow movie YouTuber, and I'm pretty excited for this one. We are both listing our most overrated and underrated movies of 2016 thus far. So I really love Rachel and I love her channel, so I'm super excited to do this kind of dual video collaboration with her. And I know that our lists are going to vary quite a bit, and I'm pretty sure she's actually going to straight up disagree with several of the movies I put on my list. But that's what the fun is all about. That's what movies are all about. We don't have to agree on everything. We can let people enjoy the movies that they enjoy. So my criteria for coming up with my lists for the most overrated and most underrated movies of the year, of course, start with Rotten Tomatoes score. But they also branch out to just the general, movie fan community and how they've really reacted to the film, as well as some lists that I've looked at where, people have done mid-year best and worst movies of the year lists, and then based it off of all of those. However, the defining factor is, in order to be on the most overrated movies of the year, it has to be a fresh rating, which is anything over 60%. I think all of my choices are actually certified fresh, but that necessarily wasn't the case. And then, to be on the underrated movies of the year, it had to be rotten, so 59% and under. Anywhere under there, it was fair game, but we're not going to do any, this only got a 5%. I think it should have gotten a 10%, it's underrated. No, none of that. It has to be a legitimate under or overrated scenario, for me. So first up, we're going to go with the list that I found easier to make, and that was the most overrated movies of the year. And we're going to go ahead and start with the most recent release on this list, and that is Sausage Party. Sausage Party currently sits at an 82% on the Tomatometer. And it's one of two movies on this list that I was completely shocked when I went and looked on that tomato score. Like, 82%? And I didn't get to see this at a screening, so I didn't actually do a review on it because I saw it a little bit late. I decided, you've seen enough reviews, you don't need to see my opinion as well. So this is basically going to be a mini review from me. I'm probably going to be a little bit long-winded, so be prepared. So I think critics are really latching on to Sausage Party because it is an anti-religion film, and we don't get many of those in Hollywood. We get a lot of things that are like, do whatever you want, but we never really get movies that directly fly in the face and say, look, organized religion, no bueno. And I will say, I did like a lot of what the movie had to say about religion and not just blindly following religion. Think about why you're making these choices or why things are how they are, rather than blindly letting yourself be sheeped around, in this case, to your death, by, just a religious message or religious leaders. I think it's much more an egregious case of letting the actual human being who's spouting the message steer you where they want you to go. And I think it also does have some funny moments, of course. I mean, it made me laugh a few times throughout the movie. The animation is solid, and it's creative. It has a nice creative premise. So all of those things are admirable. It also does do a few nice little satirical moments, dealing with race, kind of homophobia. But on the flip side, it has way more jokes that are just straight up racist and homophobic and misogynistic and sexist. So many of the jokes in here are just stereotypes that are meant to be the punchline. And I think that's always just lazy comedy. So we have the black guy being grits. We have, a Twinkie being a little Twinkie gay boy, as well as the entire fruit section being gay. And then we have the cast that is almost completely whitewashed, like Bill Hader, who gets to voice a Native American character, as well as a couple Mexican characters. There is this wonderful Palestinian conflict discussion that takes place in this movie. But guess what? Neither of the voice actors are appropriate to be playing the roles that they're playing, so a miss there. So you can't champion and make fun of like racists in one hand, but then be racist in the other hand. Same thing with homophobia. And especially with the misogyny, because they don't really fly in the face of misogyny at all. It's just a misogyny bro overload the entire film. And nothing demonstrates this more than the fact that there are at least 4 cases of non-consensual sex that happen in this movie, many which are just out and out rape. And they're played for laughs. Each and every time it's played as a joke. And that's just terrible to me. It's pretty much unforgivable to play rape as a joke in a movie anymore. I mean, I had a problem when Deadpool even mentioned it in his movie. And then we have it here over and over and over again, actually happening right before our eyes. And it was, I mean, I found it very disturbing to see so much rape on screen and to have it be meant as a joke. And then to have people call me a social justice warrior and a PC idiot over the fact that I was uncomfortable with the rape makes me really sad, actually, for our movie viewing environment and the bro types that are gonna love this movie. Rape isn't funny, people. Sorry about it. And I mean, that completely washes away anything good that this movie has to say or do. Next up, we have Popstar, Never Stop, Never Stopping. So this movie has a 77% on the Tomatometer, and I was baffled when I saw that Rotten Tomato score after watching the movie. And I use the word movie very loosely when it comes to Popstar, because really, it's like 20 SNL skits shoved into a movie and given kind of sort of a through line to keep it moving along. So the fact that critics didn't really ring this movie's bell for not really being a movie and just being a bunch of skits mashed together, really? But more so than that, it kind of felt like pseudo-intellectualism at its peak. If Neon Demon had made it to the fresh part of the meter, thankfully it didn't, that definitely would be on this list, because that, along with Popstar, really just embody what I think of when I do think pseudo-intellectualism. They want to say so much more, and they actually think that they're so much smarter than they're coming across. This movie thinks it's saying so much about us as a people, when really it's just kind of retreading water we've been down, and it's not really unveiling anything new. And it's easy to spoof Justin Bieber, I mean, come on. Not to mention, really the only time this movie has something smart to say are in the songs. And they are also the really only funny parts about the movie. When we're between songs, it feels like a slog. So, I mean, just buy the soundtrack. There's no need to actually see Popstar Never Stop, Never Stopping, because you don't need context to that music. I mean, there's not really a strong story around the songs. So, I don't know. I feel like it was a very weak attempt. It thinks it's smarter than it is. And it's just Saturday Night Live on the big screen, pretty much. Lonely Island doing what they do, and, you know, not really willing to let any ideas go and just shoving them into the film. Next up, we have Hail Caesar. Hail Caesar currently sits at 86% on the Tomatometer. And this one was the last one I added to my list because I really struggled with filling that 4th spot because I had quite a few movies that I think are overrated this year. I settled on Hail Caesar, even though I actually enjoyed Hail Caesar for the most part, because it's just such a disappointment. The trailers looked amazing, the concept was amazing, the cast was amazing, but then you just got a good movie. Kind of like Popstar, it's not even really a movie. It's a bunch of little vignettes that are shoved together into a story, and then we have this weird mystery that kind of links them all together. There's a bunch of plot holes and a bunch of plot points in this film that literally go nowhere. So they didn't need to be here. We have characters that didn't need to be here, and they aren't done anything with. Plus, the ending is very strange to me. So while I thought there were funny moments, and I loved like the Channing Tatum dance scene and the Scarlett Johansson water moments and just kind of the homage to old Hollywood, that homage can only get you so far. That spoof can only get you so far, and I think the Coens are still far from their best. I do think this is a step up from some of the more recent stuff they've done, but we still have a while to go to get back to where they're at their best. So my final most overrated movie of the year is Everybody Wants Some. Everybody Wants Some currently sits at 87% on the Tomatometer, and unlike a couple of the other movies on my list, I wasn't shocked at all at where it's at. I mean, it's by Richard Linklater, so of course it's gonna be fresh, right? But as we know, Richard Linklater is famous or infamous, however you want to look at it, at creating movies that really don't have a story, they don't really have a plot. You just are meant to kind of experience this point in time, this group of people. And I'm completely fine with that. I actually love experience films as long as they hit me. And unfortunately, this movie did hit me, but it hit me in the wrong ways. Because it's about just these jock college guys. And that's never been a group that I have cared to really hang out with. I don't really hang out with those kind of people in my real life. So I didn't enjoy spending over 2 hours with them as they go on their never-ending quest to get laid. And the big problem is that Richard Linklater doesn't really strive to show us a new side to these guys. It doesn't really break down stereotypes of college male athletes at all. I guess the two main guys are a little bit smarter than maybe we would think. Maybe our main character is a little bit nicer after a little bit more in life, but I mean, really, all of their goals and everything they do in this movie revolved around getting laid. I think even playing baseball, the main reason these guys are at college, it's about getting laid. I mean, we hardly focus on the baseball aspects of it. I mean, to be honest, it just felt like being trapped at a party with a bunch of people I didn't know and I didn't particularly like, and I couldn't leave because I didn't drive myself. That's what I felt like watching Everybody Wants Some. I just was annoyed with the characters. I didn't relate to them at all. I didn't relate to their little plights. I didn't relate to their college experience. And I just kind of was over it. I didn't really like the characters. I just wanted out of the theater because I was like, ugh, God, I'm over all this bro-ness already. I'm over it. Now, on to my most underrated movies of the year. This list was a lot harder to construct, except for one movie, which I feel a little bit more passionately about. And we're going to go ahead and just start with that movie. And it's XMen Apocalypse. XMen Apocalypse currently sits rotten with 48% on the Tomatometer. I will say I definitely can understand a lot of points that people have made, but I'm seeing it pop up on lists like in the top 5 worst movies of the year so far, and I think it's a far cry from the top 5 worst movies of the year. I think that's just completely ridiculous. I think a lot of X-Men diehards, which I'm one of y'all, really are upset with some of the changes the film has made. But for you X-Men diehards and general movie fans, let me go ahead and put it in some perspective for you. X3, The Last Stand, currently sits at a 58% on the Tomatometer. Do we really think that X-Men The Last Stand is that much better than Apocalypse? Or even better at all? Because I don't think it's better at all. That movie completely bastardized the Phoenix Saga and a lot of our favorite minor characters way worse than anything Apocalypse did. Yes, was I mad when Apocalypse was the one who gave my girl Storm her white hair? Yeah, I was. Was I mad to see them going down that same like inner struggle route with Jean Grey? Yeah, I was. But this movie also gave us a much better Scott Summers, for sure. A stronger Jean Grey, in my opinion, right off the bat. I think she had a little bit more characterization. Moved a little bit fast, but hey. Plus, we have 2 award-caliber performances here from James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender. This entire new trilogy has delivered time and time again with these 2 actors, and unlike other characters who just embody that character and do a great job with them, such as, you know, Tony Stark and Robert Downey Jr., or Hugh Jackman with Wolverine. These 2, I wouldn't even be shocked if they were in conversation come award season, especially Michael Fassbender in this movie and James McAvoy with Days of Future Past. They are so good and bring so much to this material. And I will admit, the first time I went into this film, I didn't love it coming out. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized it wasn't the movie that I wanted it to be, like some selfish fan. I went back in, watched it again, and I had a really good time accepting it for what it was aiming to be. And the main problem with Apocalypse doesn't actually come with the movie, it comes with the source material. Apocalypse as a villain is just almost a god. He's so overpowered compared to the rest of the X-Men and the mutants that it's so hard for a film to do that villain and come out with not just a big baddie. And he's such a famous villain from the comic books, the TV series, all of that, that I think fans would have been angry and upset if we never got to see an Apocalypse on the screen. But it's a problem with fandoms, it's a problem with, I mean, it's a big blockbuster movie, it's a comic book movie, and finally we're getting brighter, we're getting lighthearted with these comic book movies, and X-Men is finally starting to embrace that a little bit. I enjoyed seeing the X-Men start to embrace it. I just love spending time with these characters, and I don't think it's worse than The Last Stand, and definitely don't think it's worth a 48% on the Tomatometer. Next up, I have Jason Bourne. Jason Bourne currently sits at 57% on the Tomatometer, so it just missed out by 3 little percentage points on getting to a fresh rating instead of rotten. But it really deserved those 3 little extra percentage points. So I think critics and fans alike are focusing so hard on the fact that Jason Bourne kind of repeats the same basic story beats over and over and over again. But so do the Marvel films, and they get amazing scores on the Tomatometer. But this one I thought delved deeper still into Jason Bourne's story, but more so, it dealt with the political situation in the United States and the political mistrust we have really, really well. Even better maybe than some of the past Bourne films, because it rings so true with the current election season we have. And I think that critics really overlooked the fact that it does resonate so well. It is so poignant in today's society. On a more surface level, Matt Damon is Jason Bourne. He's fantastic in the role. Alicia Vikander was really, really good here. Tommy Lee Jones, really, really good. All the acting across the board was top-notch, solid. And as an action film, it was a great action movie. So if you're judging this as an action movie more so maybe even than a Bourne movie, it definitely deserves to be fresh because it succeeds pretty much across the board as an action film. Not to mention that car chase scene at the end is probably my favorite action sequence of the year thus far, and one of the best car chase sequences I've ever seen. And the fights that happen are so gritty and real and wonderful. I mean, for those alone, it should have been certified fresh. Next up, I have The Boy. The Boy currently sits at 27% on the Tomatometer, and I definitely can't argue too much. I understand why critics don't like it. I kind of understand why horror fans don't like it as well, but I think horror fans overall were okay with it. But I had fun with The Boy. I think it created a great concept. Who doesn't love a creepy doll? But then they added some new twists onto the creepy doll. They created a very creepy atmosphere, a nice ambiance for a horror film throughout. So it was a solid, good horror film, and then we got to that twist, which, I mean, probably M. Night Shyamalan is jealous of, because it was such a fun, outrageous, completely shocking twist that I loved it. And it created an entirely new atmosphere and an entirely new type of thriller for the last act of the film. And I really enjoyed that last act of the film as well. And I think this film never took itself too seriously, but still was able to provide a fun thriller horror movie. And that's all it needs to do. And I had a great time with it. You all know I love horror, and I think The Boy was a solid movie. I had a lot of choices for this last one. I was really on the fence between a couple, but I'm gonna go ahead and give my last spot to Demolition. I think the main problems with this film, one, are that the story is a little bit inconsistent and it's a little bit heavy-handed. But as I talked about in my overrated movies, critics don't seem to care when there's no real storyline, or the storyline is very inconsistent in storytelling, so again, what are we doing here? But the movie just starts with amazing performances across the board, starting with Jake Gyllenhaal to all of the supporting characters. I mean, everybody just delivers here. Jake Gyllenhaal continues on his quest of amazing performance after amazing performance after amazing performance, and I want him to get his Oscar already. I already feel how people have been feeling with Leonardo DiCaprio, and we're much earlier in Jake Gyllenhaal's career, so come on, what are we doing, Oscars? Let's go. But more so than that, I think while, yes, it is heavy-handed in its message telling, it is such a fantastically strange case study of a film to watch. Watching this guy literally have a meltdown to find himself in front of our eyes and rip his world down to rip his walls down, I found completely fascinating. And then we have this young boy over here who he's kind of mentoring, but is also really going through his own crap. He's really going and trying to discover himself right along with Jake Gyllenhaal. And their parallels were amazing, and I thought their interactions also were nice for the most part. I will say, sometimes that little boy had some very psychotic, crazy tendencies. I wish we didn't feed into those as much. But in the same sense, it made me realize, look, we villainize people so quickly, both Jake Gyllenhaal's character calling him insane, calling him crazy, and this young boy, without taking the time to really understand backstories, to really understand what they're going through in their life. So watching that boy really tone down those psychotic tendencies, and as he became more comfortable with himself and accepted himself and how to present himself to the world, was really nice. Watching Jake Gyllenhaal's character just go through a complete transformation and continue to search for himself was wonderful. Naomi Watts was great. I mean, I just thought this movie was really strong. It stuck with me a little bit after the film. I can forgive the on-the-nose and heavy-handed moments because I connected with the film, so I had a nice experience, and I think people should have given it a little bit more of a chance. So those are my most overrated and underrated movies when it comes to the Tomatometer. Now that you've watched my video, head over to Rachel's channel and check out her video. I'll leave her channel link in my description, and then after we both post our videos, I think I'll go ahead and copy the actual video link so you can head straight there and leave that in the description as well. I also want to know, what do you think are the most overrated and underrated movies of the year? Are they the same as mine? I know you all probably disagreed with a lot of the movies I put on this list. That's awesome. Leave your disagreements down below in the comments. If you did agree with anything I said, that's awesome too, and leave those down as well. I love you all so much for your support. Mwah! Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!